Now, I'm Jason with More Than Handy, and this is part 3 of my 75-gallon aquarium build. And in this video, I'm going to take you through a little bit of the trim work that's been added, and I'm going to show you how I solve the problem that come with having a canopy. The first thing you'll notice that is different is that I've added a door up top and that I've added doors down below. I'm not really going to go into how these doors were made because at the end of the day, these doors were pretty much identical to the raised panels that were made for the sides of the stand and for the canopy. And all you would really have to do in that case is follow that same principle with the addition of an arch. If you didn't have a good way to build yourself an arch, you can buy pattern kits, and the pattern templates will allow you to do that. Or it's easier in some cases to just buy your doors pre-manufactured from someone else. You can specify the material, the type of doors, the dimensions, and they send them to you ready to install. The lower doors come in at 18 inches wide by 24 inches high. They've also got an arch detail that mimics the arch up here, and it's a pretty close mimic for the arch in the bottom of the aquarium. The doors are held by a magnetic clasp to keep them from coming open by mistake, and this door has a board that runs the full height to block any light that's going to be coming from the sump from coming out and spilling into the living room. I've also added this crown molding detail, and this really finishes off the aquarium and gives me additional height to hide any cordage or wires that would be coming in and sitting on top of the reflector that you've seen in the canopy in an earlier video. This upper door comes in at 37 1/4 inches long by 10 1/4 inches high. It has 2 panels, and the beauty of this door is that it removes itself entirely to allow complete access for working inside of the canopy. The benefits of this system is that it does allow me to get in here pretty easily for things like feeding or viewing or just general maintenance within the canopy. The door also has a shoulder that sits in and sits on top of this board and magnetic clasps that catch here and here to allow this door to sit, be centered every time, and not have to worry about it falling off. Even with the door removed, you still have the problem though that comes with canopies in that I'm not easily able to reach the bottom of the aquarium, and I see a lot of people deal with this by having canopies where the entire front moves or the canopy is hinged and the whole top flips over onto the back and would allow us some greater access. But in my case, I wanted a piece of furniture that looked a little bit more finished, and I just didn't want to have a giant cut or some other telltale symptom that would let you know that this thing comes apart. Even though this is about a 100-pound canopy, I was able to lift that with fairly minimal effort. I would venture to guess that I probably put about 20 pounds of actual lift effort, and you'll notice that it stays in place and gives me complete access, and I am able to reach pretty much every surface in the aquarium while standing flat-footed. The canopy also closes down just as easily as it raises up. And of course, the magic of how that happens is all contained within the back side of the aquarium. So the first thing I want to say before I really get into the specifics of how this works is that if I manage to miss something, or if you have a question that I just didn't cover in this video, you can leave that question as a comment in the comments section, and I'll either try to address that question in the comments, or I'll try to do a video that's more specific about this a little bit later on. So having said that, let's move right in. These slides are made out of wood, and the dimensions of each of these boards are 70 inches high, 2 inches thick, and 1 1/4 inches wide. It's also important to note that these are made out of oak. You probably could have gotten away with doing this out of pine or maybe a softer, less expensive wood. But the reason that I saw that as a little bit of a risk is because softer woods tend to have the holes that screws leave in them kind of wallow out over time, and they just seem to have less of a bite in terms of holding on. And I didn't want to end up in a situation where one of these pulley screws backed out and caused the canopy to come crashing down. For one, it could break the aquarium and flood the house, and for two, this thing's pretty heavy, and that could be pretty dangerous if I had my arm in the aquarium, or even worse, maybe my head, and it were to come down against my neck. So for that reason, I did use a hardwood that tends to hold the screws for much, much longer than softwood does. I have the canopy in the upright position, and it should be pretty obvious that this board here is directly bolted to the canopy on both sides, and that the outer boards are bolted directly to the stand. There are also spacers in between this board and the canopy, and this board and the stand, and those spacers are there so that as this unit moves up and down, this board doesn't rub against the canopy, because that rubbing would have created a lot of friction and made it possibly very difficult or maybe even impossible to have this thing operational. The pulley configuration that I came up with after a little bit of experimenting. The bottom of the board that is connected to the canopy has a single pulley, and the top of the board that's connected to the stand has 2 pulleys. Now I could have gotten away with a single pulley here and a single pulley here, or even possibly 1 pulley on this board and no pulley down here at all, just a stud to tie the rope to. But fewer pulleys was going to mean that I would need more weight to raise this canopy. And a 3-pulley system pretty much means that all I need is 1/3 of the weight of whatever I'm lifting in order to be able to raise it. Now, of course, I lose some of the mobility, but this is plenty of height for me to work in. And so for my case, 3 pulleys and this amount of height was just perfect. Also, for this mechanism to work, I was going to need some weights. I was having a hard time finding weights that would fit between the aquarium and the wall, especially given that the weights were going to most likely be in front of this slide mechanism. And so I paid a visit to my local metal fabrication shop and had them make me these weights. These are 2-inch steel rods. They're solid steel. They're about 18 inches long, and they've just welded me a loop at the top so that I can hang these onto some sort of rope. You'll notice that I have a drawer glide at the top of each glider, as well as one at the bottom, and that's so that when the canopy in its uppermost position, there just isn't a ton of stress placed on this one drawer glide in some sort of a twisting motion. In other words, this glide helps to hold the inner board parallel to the outer board and prevents the canopy from wanting to tip forward. I started off with 2 pieces of oak. This material is 1¼ inch thick. It is 2 inches wide and 70 inches in total length. And each of these pieces is going to get a drawer glide connected. So this piece will have the bottoms of the drawer glide both at the bottom and the top. And this piece here will end up with the intersection of the drawer glide connected, like so. These 2 pieces basically slide in and out just like this and assisting in raising and lowering the canopy. What keeps that smooth and even and make sure that it has plenty of strength are these 24-inch drawer glides. Step 1 is to go ahead and disassemble the drawer glides so that I can mount them to their respective pieces of wood and click it all together at the end and have it serve as one giant glide.
Would you stop your guns if I had you on my side? Come and seal your flame till the end of my desire.
But now it's time to mount the pulleys and make this piece be an exact mirror of this one. And that pretty much wraps up part 3 of this aquarium build. In the next video, I hope to be applying some paint both inside and outside of the aquarium furniture, as well as installing some of the basic electrical components. And if you haven't done so already, please give me a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe so you won't miss any upcoming videos with this build. And until next time, this is Jason with Born Handy.